I want to continue now with the Larry King interview from May of 2000, and I'll stop the recording when I hear a comment that I feel is something I want to talk about. So let's continue now with the interview itself with Steve Thomas and the Ramseys.
And I felt it had become such a debacle and was going nowhere. Out of frustration, I left the case in police work.
John, why did you agree to come on with Steve tonight? I mean, this is right at his start. I'm trying to remember if there's ever been television like this.
Caused irreparable harm to my family. He has called my wife a murderer. He has called me complicity to murder.
All right. Now, if you notice, everyone, the actual murderer that the Ramseys keep talking about was not mentioned at all. All the damage that he caused. And Steve Thomas is gathering evidence, and according to the evidence and what Patsy has said, he doesn't believe it. He never once said, "You're a liar." He's just saying that your tale of what happened doesn't match the evidence. And let's face it, the ransom note does not match the crime at all. And he didn't even talk about the 9/11, where it's a lot of evidence too. But you notice that John Ramsey's really having trouble even describing what's upsetting him. He's just at a loss for words. He's not very articulate when you listen to this, but it's more of a defensive posture. He's not even concerned that his daughter was murdered. It's all about him and Patsy.
He has called me a liar. He has slandered my relationship with my daughter, Patsy's relationship with JonBenét. He did that in a public forum, which is reprehensible, and it needed to be addressed in a book.
Now, Steve Thomas did put some things in his book, and I'm sure that's what John Ramsey's talking about. But a lot of people came forward. Mike Cain of the prosecuting team, Cyril Wecht, just the people of Boulder, Ramsey's former friends have all said that he was a liar, that they know more than what they're saying, that the evidence shows one thing and the Ramseys are saying something else. But for some reason, all of the focus and all of the hate is directed at Steve Thomas. Let's face it, he had enough guts to come on and confront the Ramseys, not agreeing with everything that they say, as Lou Smit did. It takes a lot to get on national TV and to say all this. Now, what was the ransom amount that the so-called kidnapper asked for? $118,000. And again, so many people think that the Ramseys wrote that letter. In particular, the penmanship matched Patsy. And all that they would put down that she was worth was $118,000. Think about that. But for their character, them personally, they sued for $80 million. Now, they did win money. It's undisclosed, but it was settled out of court, so he probably had to give all of his revenue from his book to the Ramseys. They literally profited off the death of their daughter that a lot of people think they were responsible for. Now, that is hideous. That's disgraceful. That's just beyond comprehension.
Not a bit.
You felt you wanted to confront this.
Absolutely, it's time.
And you see how arrogant that they are. Patsy just comes across as very high and mighty and arrogant and without sin, without blame, and such a different contexture from her attitude on the 9/11 tape and when she appeared before CNN and the worldwide media 1 week after the murders, where she was frail and hysterical and drugged up, and now she's strong. She is obviously coached. She's arrogant. What a difference.
Is it difficult for you to sit in Steve's presence?
It's not pleasant. This man has harmed us deeply.
And again, with the harming deeply, not a thing is mentioned about the killer, according to the Ramseys, the alleged killer, I should say. I think a lot of us know who. We don't know exactly who. We will never know. I believe Burke knows. I believe that John Ramsey's son also knows. That's for another podcast, but he just goes on, destroying his character.
He's failed in his responsibilities as a police officer. He's failed us. He's failed JonBenét. He's failed the community of Boulder. It's not pleasant.
Steve,
Well,
how do you
let's talk about failure. Let's talk about parents who I feel have failed their daughter, who, after this became a homicide, of course they cooperated when it was a kidnapping, but after it became a homicide, Patsy, you waited 4 months before you came in and talked to the Boulder Police Department and answered questions.
No, Steve, I did not.
Well, tell me when. I was there every day. Tell me how many
Were
hours.
you in our home that day?
How many?
Now, again, were you in my home that day? He wasn't on the case yet. It happened on a day he wasn't even there. They were just starting the investigation, so of course he wasn't on call in there again. And she's just lying through her teeth. Yes, when she portrayed it as a kidnapping, they were very talkative. But as soon as it became a body in the basement, all of a sudden they clammed up. There's an old saying that whenever there's a dead body in a home, the first people you look at are the ones that are still breathing. And we know which three were still breathing in that home that night.
How many hours
Press
did you
release,
spend, Steve?
rather than talk over each other. You say they didn't appear. You say you did appear with the Boulder Police. How would he not
At
know
the
about it?
Boulder Police Department. I
wasn't
don't
there
remember
that
you
day.
there.
Oh, you weren't there. They weren't. You weren't there.
You weren't there. No, she's talking about that she spoke in the home when she had no choice, when she called them into her home. She never came to the police department, not before April of 1997. It's a bold-faced lie if she says she spoke to the police department.
The family continues to cooperate with the police investigation, although the police have not yet conducted interviews with the father and mother. They
Have not yet conducted interviews. They were only cooperative because at that point they had to go in and give samples. They had no choice. And Steve eloquently says that. He kept his cool during this, but again, they're on the attack. And they don't sound like grieving parents searching for the murderer of their daughter. They just don't. They're on the offensive. They're on the offensive, and they're attacking someone who's investigating the case. The 26th, that's when they called the police to the house. They gave blood samples. They had no choice but to give blood samples. Listen to Steve Thomas.
On the 27th, two detectives went to their house to schedule an interview. They didn't speak with Patsy. They asked when they could arrange to come in. Let's cut to the chase here. You waited until April 30th
Let's
of
really
1997.
cut to the
Mr. Ramsey.
chase, Steve
Let
Thomas.
me cut to the chase.
Let's cut to the chase. What is your theory? Tell us your.
Now, he wants him to give the theory. And Steve should have just said, no, you tell me, you were in the house. So he wants to give a theory which he knows that Steve is not going to get completely right because Steve Thomas wasn't there. Everybody's got a theory. So how would he know he wasn't there? So to me, I wouldn't even have answered this question. He should be asking him, what's your theory? But you notice the one asking the questions. It's not someone who is under suspicion of murder, it's the detective.
You certainly approached this impartially, one would assume. You didn't know the Ramseys, right? You
Absolutely
didn't know
not.
John Bonet, didn't know anyone connected to this. When did you come to the conclusion you came to, and that conclusion is what?
Well, despite what the Ramseys assert, that it was the 26th, they now know I came into the case, was called into the case 2 days later. It was probably spring of 97 or later when evidence continued to come back, indicating Patsy's involvement in the authorship of the ransom note. One.
So there's the case evidence coming in, and it was pretty clear. They're acting like the Boulder police had an agenda. So we can't find a real killer, so let's just accuse the parents and start harassing them and convict them needlessly, because that's the kind of people we are. I don't buy that for 2 seconds.
But let's cut to the chase, John. Let's make a very important distinction here. A dead child, your child, was found in your basement for which you could not offer a satisfactory explanation. And if I can finish, please.
Now, John Ramsey's going to cut him off here, but John Ramsey was as restless as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. He found the body, and he was walking around that house. He was as antsy as could be. He was a nervous wreck, and he even said he went down to the basement earlier morning, and who knows what he was doing down there. Then he decided he was just waiting for his chance, and he was going to take his friend with him, not because he was his friend, because he wanted a witness down there with him. When he immediately went right to that, what they call the wine cellar, opened up the door, and yelled out before he turned on the light. The according to Fleet White, the one that went down with him. And that room was pitch black. Unfortunately, in this interview, Steve didn't get a chance to bring that up, but Ramsey found the body.
I didn't have a dead child found in my
Does that
basement and
make
resisted the
me a
police.
murderer?
No, not at all. Do we want to get into evidence?
I want you to get into your
Let's
theory.
talk. Let's talk evidence.
Let me get
He wants a theory. Give me a theory. Give me a theory. He's giving him evidence.
hear
Let's
your
hear the
theory,
theory.
please.
Let me get a break, and since we don't have anybody arrested in this, we don't have a trial, we're sort of taking you into evidence here. I feel like it's law and order.
But this is one of the most amazing interviews that you're ever going to see, where the detective and two people highly suspicious of a murder are face to face.
Well, theory, I hope we get a chance to talk about their convoluted sex crime, pedophile, kidnapper turned murderer theory, but I think
There you got what had to be said, that this convoluted pedophile who turns into a kidnapper, who turns into a murderer, and don't forget the ransom letter, not note, ransom letter, 3 pages, does not fit the crime, because it's asking for money and saying things like she's alive. The gentlemen are watching over her. Some gentlemen. Nothing matches.
because
Let's
I
go.
think it's very simple.
We'll get their theory. I want your theory. What's your theory?
My theory is quite simple. Whoever authored the ransom note killed the child, absent some great conspiracy that they think this intruder came into the house.
Would you agree that whoever authored the ransom note probably killed the child?
I would agree.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Now, how could they agree with that 100%? John said 100%. How would they know 100% that whoever wrote the note killed the child? There's a huge red flag. Whoever wrote the letter, yes, I 100% believe that. But if they're truly innocent, how could they say that? They weren't down there. They weren't there. They were asleep, they said. Huge red flag. That's leakage. That's them knowing that, yes, we know that the one who wrote the ransom note killed her. How is that possible unless they did it?
Your contention is she wrote the note.
I
What do you
do.
base that on?
I do. I base that on question document examiners.
Expert document examiners said it was her.
By the time I left the Boulder Police Department, in June of 1998, Patsy, out of 73 suspects whose handwriting had been looked at, you were the only one who showed evidence to suggest authorship.
Out of 73, she's the one that stood out.
Yeah. And why then didn't they go right in and arrest? Why didn't they, what's your
Probable cause, these people know better than anybody. Probable cause was not the issue in this case.
I wish I had been arrested. Now, does that sound like an innocent person? Wow, I wish I had been. Then we'd have a fair and free trial. Like they weren't treated fairly. They never went to prison, so that's pretty fair.
And you would have met your Waterloo, Mr. Thomas.
Are you saying that?
You would have met your Waterloo. She loved throwing out these phrases the same way the ransom letter writer did also. She likes to throw out some of this artistic, creative phrases, and she's not done.
You would have let her answer the question, John. Why would you let your wife answer the question?
Because you have assaulted her, you've called her a murderer. You have checked 73 suspects and said because Patsy's handwriting was the only one that couldn't be eliminated, therefore she is a murderer. That is absurd.
He just said that she was a suspect. John Ramsey's really going overboard, putting things into his mouth that he didn't say. She's a murderer. She's definitely a suspect. Why not?
You would
Why
have to
did you
check
change your
6
handwriting
billion
post-homicide?
people.
Why would question document experts and people who looked at the ransom note suggest that you changed handwriting habits after the homicide?
We have not heard that. That is not what our experts have said.
That's not what our experts have said. They always go back to their experts. They're the high and mighty.
Well, I think this is a good time to end part 2. We're at about the 19-minute mark. I don't like to go too much past that. So this has been the Steve Thomas versus the Ramseys on Larry King Live. This is part 2. Come back and join me again for part 3 of this explosive confrontational interview on Larry King Live. My name's Brian Smith, and thank you for listening.